Hey, all you crybabies out there. Anthony Zuzolo here, broadcasting to you from a state-of-the-art studio, totally not a warehouse in Brooklyn. And today, what I wanted to talk to you about is the greatest feeling in the world. Yes, the greatest feeling in the world. I think we all know what that is. As great as it is, we know that it's not seeing the smile on a child's face and knowing that you put it there. And it's not even having a hooker say to you, no, sir, you keep your money. No, the greatest feeling in the world, I think we can all agree on this, is the satisfaction that you get from breaking down another human being to the point of tears. There's just something about having the perfect delivery as you deliver that exact comment that cuts them down to their core, paralyzing them in a state of panic, knowing that the only thing that they can still feel is your tongue against their cheek as you lick up all the salty, delicious tears flowing down from their eyeballs. This brings up a good question though. Why do we cry? I mean, it makes sense for babies because they have no other way of communicating what they want, and how else are they going to get to suck on those things? The data doesn't lie, dudes. Whenever you see a girl with an amazing rack that you want to suck on, all you gotta do is cry right in front of her. Works every time. So it makes sense for babies and why they cry, but we still don't know why adults cry. We only know the times that adults cry, like when they wake up in the morning and they realize they have to go to work. There are theories out there as to the function of crying. Some people think it's to moisten the eyes, others theorize that it helps with some form of social bonding among humans, but in a definitive sense, still, scientists have no idea why a grown adult would cry, and neither do most boyfriends when you're upset. And we can't even look to the animal kingdom for clues because animals don't produce tears, even though they do get sad, like the tiger mother who lost her babies and then decided to nurse a batch of piglets. Which, that is a really fucked up way of fattening up your dinner. It's probably safe to say that our society has a weird relationship with crying, and that the only thing we can definitively say about crying is that it's a biological function. You know, a lot like itching or farting. Or maybe queefing, since only women seem to be able to do it. It's true, many of us associate crying with being womanly. I remember, this might be 10 years ago now, but I was reading Amy Poehler's memoirs, and in one chapter she shares a story where she had like a little issue on a show and she started crying, and like afterward a producer came over to her and was just like, hey, what's all this about? And he talked to her and comforted her, and then he gave her a hug afterward. And then in her memoir, Amy Poehler said, now do you think if that was a man that he would come over and give me a hug? And as long as we're going to play that game, it's a little bit like, do you think a man would cry backstage, forcing the producer to be like, hey, is this guy crying? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go over and hug him? What's going on here? Since crying is supposed to be a womanly thing, manly men who cut down logs and kill bears with their hands just to eat the meat aren't supposed to do it. As young boys, we're told not to cry because if we cry one too many times, some night will come where we fall asleep and then our dicks will fall off, and in their place a teeny tiny vagina will take their place. And what are we going to do then? Because we don't even know what tampons are yet. So I don't know how it works for you girls, but in the case of us guys, somebody at some point in our lives told us that it was not acceptable to cry. Now, not all of us were prone to crying. Some of us were probably that little boy that wreaked havoc among the schools and camps and all those places and just was not prone to crying because they were busy causing others to cry. But there were others of us that were a little more sensitive, and we cried once in a while. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. I have no problem crying. And guess what? I'm a big, strong man. Okay, well, maybe that's not very impressive, but in my defense, they closed the gym down during COVID, and I haven't gotten back into weight training yet, so just cut me some slack. And I'm here to tell you that if you're a big, strong man, it's okay for you to cry too. It's not fair that you can't. Some girl goes and breaks your heart. Well, now it's your turn to break out the gallon of ice cream, sobbing uncontrollably into it, shoveling scoop after scoop of frozen dessert and your own tears into your mouth, and having zero regrets at all until the next morning when you're on the toilet. Who am I to give you the authority to cry? I'm just the guy who cries too, who wants you to cry as well, so that you look like a bigger pussy than I do. Guys, I know it probably sounds weird, somebody saying that it's okay to cry. In fact, it probably sounds like somebody's trying to lure you into some sort of trap. Because maybe recently you heard a girl say something like, "Oh, I just want a guy to be open with his feelings and be able to share and just be willing to be sensitive and open and honest." But then, the second you do that, so that very same girl says, excuse me, can you hold this camera and record the footage of me getting fucked by my real boyfriend? But I'm not afraid to cry, even over the most trivial shit. I've cried at movies like Wreck-It Ralph, Toy Story 3. As an adult, I've even started crying at movies that didn't make me cry as a kid. Do you understand that? An Adam Sandler movie makes me cry. Big Daddy. There's that scene where the kid's getting taken away and he's crying and he's just like, "But I wipe my own ass! I wipe my own ass!" And it gets me every time now. I remember about a year ago I cried because I heard that they were remaking my favorite video game of all time, one of my favorite video games of all time, Super Mario RPG. Why would it make me cry that I heard that they were remaking this game? Because this game is pretty much perfect, and you don't fuck with perfection. This game right here is amazing. You play Super Mario, obviously, but it's an RPG, his first ever RPG, as opposed to a side-scrolling platformer, and you get control of the whole party. You go on this grand adventure to gather the 7 stars and repair the Star Road so you can make people's wishes come true. Because who doesn't want to do that? Like that, theoretically, that little kid, those Make-A-Wish kids that wish they were Batman, you're helping those kids live their dreams. So who wouldn't want to play this game where you get to do that? And you get to play as Bowser, Mario's archenemy. You get to play as Bowser for the first time. You get to play as Princess Peach, although she was still known as Toadstool in this game. It doesn't matter. So those were the classic Mario characters that you have to play as in this game, but there were also 2 new characters completely new to this game. One of them was called Geno, who everybody fucking loves because he's in charge of making those wishes come true. That's his duty. He takes over the body of this doll, and he has all sorts of cool sorcerer wizard powers, and everybody loves him. I, on the other hand, I still love Geno, but I have always been a Mallow guy. Mallow wasn't as popular because he just wasn't a badass, but I think he actually was a badass. It's just buried deep inside, and he has these really cool weather powers, like he can summon lightning, or he can make a giant snowman and drop him on the bad guys, and he just did a lot of cool things. He always had Mario and the other characters' backs, and he sobbed when he got something stolen from him, but he chased his bully down and he just punched him right in the fucking mouth to get it back. And I thought that was really cool, and Mallow's pretty much tied with Super Mario as my favorite video game character of all time. And I never really understood why Mallow was my favorite. I always thought it was just a nostalgia thing, but then I was thinking about it, and I realized probably the reason I liked him so much was that I was a massive crybaby. And Mallow was a massive crybaby. He cried over every little thing, just like me. And even though I'm of the opinion that, like, when people say representation matters, I think that's kind of dumb because I think once you get to a certain age, you're supposed to care about people of all sorts of backgrounds and not just people that look like you and take inspiration from them. I mean, I don't want to sound like the people who told me not to cry in this video by saying once you reach a certain age you're supposed to grow up, but I think in that case it's kind of true. However, in the case of children, I think they have a tough time identifying with things that don't necessarily look like them, so I'm a little more lenient in the idea that representation matters for children. So in the case of Mallow, even though he was a completely different species than I was and didn't look anything like me, you could argue that maybe he was my representation. And he cried and he kicked ass anyway, and that's why I love him. He helped me feel better about myself. Because like my boy Mallow, I cried all the time in elementary school. You know how there's always that unpopular kid in school? Well, that was me, that guy that had no friends. I would cry all the time. I would have kids pull my pants down, and they would target me during the games of dodgeball. Which brings us to this video's sponsor, by the way, Wilson Sporting Goods. When you're 9 years old and see a dodgeball rocketing towards your face, there's only one brand whose logo you want to see right before you fade to black. Wilson. So when I was in 4th grade, our class, every so often, we would have these spelling bees, and in addition to being the unpopular kid in class, I was also the smart kid in class. Those things often went hand in hand. So I would not always win the spelling bee, but there would be like top 3 and each would get a prize, and I would pretty much always be in the top 3. So one of these spelling bees, after getting the reputation of being a winner, I did not win. We didn't do it like traditionally, so first and second place were already determined, and then it was down to 3rd place, and it was between me, the unpopular smart kid, and somehow the very popular rebellious badass kid for the bronze medal. It would sort of be like for you Simpsons fans if Bart Simpson was taking on Martin Prince. So 1st and 2nd place had already been decided, and me and this kid are battling out for 3rd. And it's my turn, and my word is teachers. And this is the example sentence that my teacher gave. So he goes, teachers, the teacher's pet, which causes the whole class to chuckle at me because that's their perception of me. So, I spell my word, teachers. Teachers. T-E-A-C-H-E-R-S. Teachers. And as I say no, wait, because I realize that there's supposed to be an apostrophe in there. So I lose the spelling bee because I forgot the damn apostrophe. My downfall was due to an apostrophe, for crying out loud, which, in this era of political correctness and accountability, why are we still letting the apostrophe roam free? The apostrophe is possessive. It's possessive over me, over you. It's toxic masculinity and oppression. It's meant to convey ownership, which flies in the face of indigenous peoples everywhere, because you can't just go out and own property, man. So I lose the spelling bee, which causes my entire class in 4th grade to cheer out loud. Makes sense, doesn't it? We've seen enough movies where the quiet dorky kid succeeds in the end. It was finally time for the strong and athletic to triumph over the brainy and meek. So the whole class cheered when they finally toppled Nerd Goliath. And wouldn't you know it, having the whole class cheer for my failure was enough to get me to cry. That was just one example. Like I said, I cried all the time, and the crying continued from elementary school to not medical school, because I'm not a doctor. That would be very pathetic if I cried all the time in medical school, like I gave somebody the wrong pills or something. To middle school. And that's when my dad had enough. And he sat me down. Well, I don't remember it too well, but what I do remember is, like, I don't remember what I was crying about, but I can assume that it was because he saw me crying after I came home from school one day. And what I do remember is he said to me, if you cry again, you're going to be in trouble. and that scared me. I don't think he said that because he looked down on that behavior himself, even though I was raised by a tough guy and I didn't inherit his tough guyness. I mean, I am a tough guy deep down inside, but I just don't really bring him out because I like being nice to people. I know that's weird to some people, but that's me. But in any case, I don't think he was saying that because he looked down on that behavior. I think he did that because he saw a potential future where if I kept crying, it would harm me in the long run. And so I think he said that because he wanted to protect me from the world. Now, you wouldn't know it from watching this video because I do have to be somewhat upbeat in order to deliver jokes to you people, but in real life, I do have some bit of trouble feeling emotions, and I do think what my dad said, possibly, not definitively, but possibly, could have been a little bit responsible for that. Like, I have no problem being myself in front of friends and showing emotion in front of them because I've grown comfortable with them, but in terms of being around strangers, or if I just don't think you'd really understand me, I kind of withdraw a little bit and not really show you who I am, and I get very like, yeah, okay, thanks. Like if you told me, oh, I'm having a baby, I'd be like, oh, you're having a baby, oh, great. Like, not really excited when I should be, even if I am like inside. Like I could win $10 million, and instead of being like, yeah, $10 million, if the person told me, I'd be like, oh, $10 million, okay, that's cool. Like that sort of thing. I don't know why, but that's me. The thing about my dad is that he gets enraged very easily. So when he said I'd be in trouble if I cried when I was a kid, I was terrified. Mostly I was terrified for me, but also the people around me too, because my dad, he's said like if somebody's giving you trouble, like I'm gonna beat the crap out of them. And he's the type of guy that like he meant it. Like he would probably punch a child if they were giving me shit. So yeah, they were my bullies, but they were also still kids, so I kind of just learned to clam up and just hide that sort of thing from my dad because I didn't want the situation to get even worse than it already was. So my dad took the man up approach, but I don't hold that against him. My dad, like all parents, was tasked with the very delicate project of not fucking us up. And I'm not a parent, but I can safely say that it's probably really easy to fuck somebody up when you're a parent. Um, so I don't resent him for anything because, there's all these things that could go wrong that you don't even know could go wrong. I mean, at no point in your parenthood does God hand you a book saying, how not to fuck up your kid by Jesus H. Tap Dancing Christ, with a foreword by Machine Gun Kelly. And I'm not saying my dad made the wrong choice either, because I don't know what I would do if I was a dad. I would probably take the opposite approach, but I think his approach is equally valid. Because it's like, what do? It's you either risk your kid not being able to process emotion by telling them not to cry, so that the real world takes them seriously and doesn't chew them up, or you say, go ahead, cry as much as you want. And then one day you'll end up wondering why they came home with their underwear over their head from some other kid bullying them. With all that said, I'm here to tell you that it is okay to cry once in a while. Just once in a while, you have those days, or somebody's pushing your buttons, go ahead, let it out. It's just don't do it too often, because that can lead to other problems. We do all know that person that cries too much, and we do avoid them. Or even worse, there is those people that fake cry to sort of get what they want. Those are not good, and you risk coming off as one of them if you cry too much, potentially. The worst thing about crying, though, in my opinion, is that if we cry too much, we start feeling sorry for ourselves, and we start making excuses to ourselves and other people about things we did or didn't do, and that's not great because it keeps you in this rut. Do you think Alexander the Great stayed home and cried when things were bothering him? No, he went out and conquered Mesopotamia. The point is that there's a healthy middle ground between the two extremes. The two extremes of always having the waterworks on, so you can open up your own SeaWorld, and keeping your emotions bottled up inside so that one day you snap, and then your neighbors are on the news going, oh, we never knew he was always so polite. But anyway, Now's the part of the video where I come and ask you a question. And what I want to ask today is, when was the last time you cried? What was it over? Who were you in a conflict with? Do you feel that you were justified in crying, or did you end up blowing it out of proportion? And I also want to ask you, have you ever made anybody else cry? Did they deserve it? Were you maybe being a little too harsh on them? You can tell me in the comments below if you want, or you just answer it internally. As long as you reflect, I guess is the point of me asking you this. That's my latest video. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Please leave a thoughtful and respectful comment down below to other commenters and myself. And please go out and spread goodness, because it's better than doom.